Hello, this is Wendy, your host of Experiments in Poetry. Welcome to episode 14. Today we will discuss the song How Dare You by the musician John Mollusk. Now, um, now John Mollusk uh, wrote and performed the vocals and all the instruments. So John Mullis wrote and performed the song, but he used the lyrics by the environment today because the lyrics are actually a speech given by the environmental activist Greta Thunberg, and they were taken from a speech she gave to the UN. And I thought it was really creative that he used it and did like a mashup between his style of music, which is a hard, heavy metal, death metal type of sound, with this 16-year-old girl, or at the time, a 16-year-old girl's speech. And I don't usually listen to that genre of music. And I heard it in the background of something, and I was like, "What is that?" Because I thought I recognized the words. And so then I had to go find the full version, and I really, really enjoy it. I think it was really creative, and I can definitely see. Um, so I thought it was. So I thought it was super creative how. So I thought it was super creative using using a speech to make song lyrics, but I definitely can see why he did it, um, or why that works so well. John Mullis, like I said, is a multi instrumentalist and songwriter, and he's actually a member of the band Suaka. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is Suaka, which is a New York based metal band. Um, I actually don't know if he's a member I was anymore. I was doing research, and I looked at the band, and it seemed like maybe like within a month or two ago, he's not a member of the band anymore. But regardless, you can let me know below if that information is correct. But he was a member at least for 10 years. Um, and he was the drummer, I believe, in that band. So this kind of How Dare You was a solo effort, and to my knowledge, the first that I was able to comb through and find. Um, and so he was inspired to write this by uh, Greta Thunberg's speech. So who is Greta Thunberg? I'd be really surprised if you didn't know, because when this song came out like 2 years ago, we were pretty much like inundated through the media with this little girl nearly 24/7. Sorry. He tried to get up here and join the video. This is Romy. He is the Experiments in Poetry cat. He keeps us on our toes. He tried to jump up during the jump up on my desk while I'm filming, but since he's so adorable, I will forgive him for it. Do you want to come over here in the sun? Do you want to sit on my desk? Of course he does. So, um, anyway, I was distracted by the cuteness, distracted by the cuteness. So, that's my adorable pet, Romy, my dog. That's my dog. No, that's my cat, Romy. I've had him for like, I don't know, 14 years now. He's adorable, as you can see. Um, so, um, anyway, we were exposed to her during that time. It was about 2018 when she rose to international fame, and she would stage these protests where students would walk out of their schools, and it was called a school strike for climate. And the point of the strike was to get governments to um, either make laws to have a carbon emission targets, or to at least meet the targets that they had agreed to. She was named Person of the Year in 2019 for all her climate change awareness issues. And she addressed the United Nations, the US Congress, and UK Parliament. And it was her speech at the UN that inspired John Mullis. And because, and this is my interpretation, this is always uh, my thinking of why I think he meshed the climate change activism with his style of music, or wrote it in that sort of way, um, is because you're seeing this little 16-year-old little girl who should be worried about learning and getting into university and just having fun, living her best life. And really, it's sad because she's really concerned because apparently someone has told her that the whole world is going to be like an apocalypse now situation, um, if we don't, uh, basically go back to the 1800s. So, and I know that's a controversial topic, but I'm not. I'll talk a little bit about that more later. I'm not. Don't please don't click off because I'm not saying that climate change isn't real, but or that it is even. What I'm trying to say is, should little kids be exposed at such a young age to such a tragic and violent circumstance in which they feel helpless to control? Or should you wait until the child is an adult and can handle such existential threats and questions about survival and humanity? Um, and the reason why I say this is because in researching about her, I saw that she had reported that starting at age 8 is when she was became concerned about the end of the world, and that she didn't really understand why adults weren't taking this threat seriously and doing everything possible to mitigate its effects, because she's under the impression that basically all living life is going to go extinct if we don't do something now. And I don't know who told her this. I don't know whether that's part of the education in Sweden, or maybe that's some sort of cultural difference that's in Sweden. They tell their kids this sort of thing from a young age. Um, as an American, it's kind of odd. I have a young child, and age 8 is like a first grader. And I think even if nuclear war was going on, I don't think I'd be like, we're all gonna die, I think that I would shield him, even if something like that was to happen. I think I would do my best to kind of shield and protect them, and make matters, um, ease their suffering as much as possible. So I think it's very odd that in her UN speech, the first thing, so I'm going to switch to the lyrics of the song, which are the UN speech, which is, my message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean, yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? And, you think about it, no wonder why she's mad. I mean, like I said, maybe it's a cultural difference. I don't know who exposed her to these ideas, um, and for what purpose, but I don't think it's healthy for children to um, be told, whether it's true or not, um, that you're pretty much going to die in 5 years and there's nothing really you can do about it. And the reason why I say there's nothing really you can do about it is because Greta herself said at age 11, she became very depressed by the impossible, seemingly impossible task of saving the planet. So you're telling a young person at age 8, whatever she was exposed to, that she was basically going to die in a few years if everybody didn't change their way. And that had a great effect on her psyche. And no wonder, like, that she would be sitting there being like, like, what, the adults can't handle it, you have to come to an 8-year-old. I mean, part of me says, did this really happen to her? And why isn't anybody being prosecuted for warping the mind and abusing this poor child? Because I don't think we should be asking our young people to solve environmental crises and problems. Uh, and then putting it on their shoulders. So it's very odd. Let's continue on Greta's rage towards losing her childhood with being bothered by the idea of basically she's going to die in a few years and no one's doing anything about it and no one seems to care, which is, you have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you could talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? So, in the first kind of verse, I was talking about kind of like how why did someone even come to her, why was she even exposed to these ideas as a first grader, a little kid, and then being asked to do something about it, which I think is borderline abuse, um, or maybe abuse depending on the laws of the country. I don't know what's going on in Sweden. um, this verse is, she's not wrong in this verse either, because the people that own these big businesses, or the people that are rich enough and elite enough to be appointed to the UN, and their business contacts and friends, you're right. They don't give a shit about you, and they don't care about the environment. And that is right. I mean, I think that if they could tear down a whole forest, but they can make $1 billion doing it, that forest is gone. That forest is gone. They wouldn't think twice about it. Or if they could save, if they can make an extra quarter um, by supplementing something that, a chemical and a formula that might break down and be toxic and cause cancer, they would do that in a second if they thought they can get away with it. Their manipulation and playing into the scheme that she's supposedly fighting against, but she's too young to realize it. That basically she's just being used as a pawn against what, um, to get policies instituted that would ultimately probably damage the environment even more. But she's just too young to realize that. Um, so she goes on to say, For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight. You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency, but no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil. And that I refuse to believe. Well, I think at least she understands that there has to be things in play here that are beyond her comprehension, because she's looking around and seeing that, you know, people are still using cars, and people are still um, building large houses, or the guy who says he's a climate change activist and flies private jets everywhere, which one flight on a private jet is more emissions than I make all year round. But yet they claim, ooh, we got to do something about the environment. We got to put all these laws in. So she sees that juxtaposition and just doesn't kind of get why they're not doing anything. This is pretty much where the song ends, but you could see how dark and bleak this thought process is about, kind of this young girl being told from a young age something, and she has so much anxiety and fear and frustration. But I feel like she's kind of been, or is being manipulated. Now, that's not to say that I don't believe that climate change happens. I actually do believe that climate change happens, and I believe that, throughout the billions of years that the earth has been in existence, climate change has happened. And sometimes climate change happens because of a geological process, like uh, volcanic activity, or from a space aspect where the sun is not putting off a lot of emissions, or it's putting off a lot of emissions, or an asteroid hits. It also has happened in the past because of other living species. I mean, I think there was a point when the earth was very toxic because there was some sort of cyanobacteria that overgrew in the oceans for a period of time, and that caused like 90% of all life to die out. So um, there has been instances of something, whether it's geological, biological, or extraterrestrial, causing climate change on the earth, globally. But we also experience climate change um, all the time, geologically speaking. Like where I live right now in the United States, 100,000 years ago was a seabed. It was a sea. And then 10,000 years ago, it was covered by glaciers. And now it's a um, pretty mild climate, where you'd be lucky to maybe get a half a centimeter of snow a year. So you see these ebbs and flows. You could see sometimes in other areas where it once was lush forest is now desert, and some places that were once desert that got forest. And this is a cycle. It's a living cycle of the earth. Even though earth isn't living, it's it's kind of covered with life. And then also, if you think about the fact that there's volcanic activity in molten rock, and the earth is kind of always reshaping itself with the tectonic plate activities, and the erosion of a mountain down to dust, and then the building of new mountains over here, and melting of a continental plate and then building new continent over here. That in that essence, it's a live system that is constantly changing and evolving, and somehow we use this process to terrify a little girl. And I think, yeah, maybe human activity has been having an effect on the environment of this. Um, but that is far different than we're going to die in a few years unless you just change everything there is about yourself. To me, that idea is more of a political and socio-economic ideology that they're using climate change, which is a bad guy that will never go away. I mean, when I woke up this morning, it was 30 and, or I'm sorry, when I woke up this morning, it was 56 degrees out, and right now it is 76. So I went through a 20-degree change in just a few hours. And if I'm going to make that, oh, that's a bad thing. Oh my God, temperature shouldn't fluctuate. Um, it's not really. And then I'm going to, to me, it's like ancient times, right? Like, oh, it hasn't rained, so let's sacrifice these 10 people over here because it hasn't rained and the gods are unhappy, so let's like kill these 10 people, and then maybe it'll rain again. And so, like, if I see that the temperature went from 56 degrees and then it went to 76 in the afternoon, can I say, well, maybe if I give the government more money in the form of taxes, or if I walked instead of drove, that would stop it going from 56 degrees in the morning to 76 in the afternoon. That logic just seems just as ridiculous to me. It seems ridiculous logic that kind of disagree, um, because we're not disagreeing that human beings are or that climate change is happening. The disagreement is about how we should handle that as a society, and what changes should we make as as a result, or to prevent, what preventative measures. So, which brings me back to John Mollusk, because when I was looking at the original, oh, by the way, if you haven't already, go ahead and watch the lyric video that I created. And also, I will include a link to John Mullis's channel where he has his original video that he made for his song "How Dare You." And I haven't mentioned it already, but I'm not. I don't usually. I like rock. I just don't usually listen to heavy metal, but I actually really do like the song, and I like the energy of it, and it really made me smile at a time where it's difficult to smile these days. So thank you for that. And it was a brilliant idea, and I really enjoyed it. He goes on to say YouTube censors about 60% of the comments on the video, any that are perceived as even mildly critical of Greta or her organization, but also many that proffer alternative views about climate change. I get notified and see the comments, but they never appear to the public. I am fearful of the erosion of independent thought and free speech through curation and censorship of competing ideas by our technocratic oligarchs. Well said. That was, I totally 100% agree with him. As a scientist, there are no absolutes. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous. There are no absolutes. The only thing that is absolute is the ridiculousness of the idea that there couldn't be more than one thing. Yeah, I don't think there's any stupid questions that can be asked, and I don't think any thoughts should be shut down. And that because I know from my own experience. Okay, so I forget where I was. Sorry. Somebody keeps knocking at my door and while I'm recording, and so I have to keep stopping and then restarting, and it's oh yes, censorship of ideas. So every dictator that ever was that came from a democratic country said he has no choice but to dictate because the people kept choosing incorrectly. So the ideology that uh, one set of people, whether it's a government agency or this one scientist that's so powerful, is shutting down the thought, or even if it's a tech company that maybe has an interest or an ideology themselves, that doesn't agree with the CEO's ideology. So let me put that down a notch. Let me blacklist that, or whatever the heck they do. That is wrong. People are allowed to hold their own positions on topics in a free society, and we have to be able to discuss what we believe and why we believe what we believe so that we can understand each other and live as a community. But I like to talk, I like to debate. I have no problems with that. And I think that other people, and I wish that we continue in our society to have an open society where we can feel comfortable talking with one another about any issue that is critically important to us. Uh, and that's what's so interesting is that art reflects this. Um, and this particular song reminded me of that. That this is an issue on everybody's mind and that we hear about all the time. And it was nice to see it incorporated into a song where I feel like he did that because he was trying to juxtapose what a 16-year-old young girl saying these dark things and just changing the tone and the environment a little bit in the music, and you can really see that difficult to see, and children being abused and being told that they're basically, since they're in first grade, doomed to die any second now. I think that this is a truth to life, is that we will that's one thing that we know, is that we're all going to die. But I think to press that into an 8-year-old and to make them think about their own death and destruction every day couldn't be thought of anything less than abusive behavior, or at least behavior of a very sick culture. For listening. And if you have any songs that you would like to hear on this channel, a lyric analysis of, you can go ahead and comment below. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you want to receive more content from this channel where I discuss music lyrics and poetry. If you have any poems that you would also like to hear, like a favorite poem, you can let me know in the comment section below, the poem title, and I could see if I can cover it on the channel. It all depends on, you know, different things. But and as always, you can contact me directly at Wendy at experimentsandpoetry.com. Thank you so much and have a good day.